Hey, what's going on, guys? Zebs here on the Zebs Arts channel. It's been a minute since I've posted, but I plan on doing it again. And today I thought it'd be a good idea to come back with the tutorial. So what you're looking at on your screen right now is a header I made a little bit ago, kind of in the, I guess, like flower/plant style. It kind of gives off like a clean vibe, I would say. But I'm going to show you guys how to make this today. It's super simple to do, and I feel like it has a really cool look to it. So as you can tell, I did use a rose bush that I got off Google Images. I will include a link in the description down below for the flowers. So if you wanted to use the same ones, you could. I'll also include another one which I thought would work really good with this kind of style. So let's get started. So here we have our blank canvas here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our bush, I guess, our yellow bush here that we got off Google Images. We're just going to drag it down here. And I'm just going to duplicate it, deselect the first layer because we're going to come back to that in a little bit. And we're just going to kind of shrink down the flowers just a tad bit so that it can fit the canvas art. So what we're going to start off by doing is just kind of going around, and we're going to basically give the edge of the canvas. So as I'm doing this, it kind of feels good to be back on YouTube. I decided I'd start posting tutorials again on this channel, and I would do speed arts, things like that, just a bunch of different things. I thought, well, why not? It'd be a lot of fun to do, and I've been having a strong itch to do it. So I thought, let's get her back into it. You know what I'm saying? So we just kind of did a basic thing. I am gonna be following this. So like the flowers and all that are gonna look the same, or like they're gonna be in the same spot basically. So basically have a general thing here. So add one here, I suppose, and then I'm just gonna clean up this left side a little bit, doing that, and maybe I'll also bring this down to the right a little, kind of clean it up a little bit. But usually when you're doing this for the actual thing, I'd put some more time into the layout of the flowers, or like how much is showing and whatnot, because you want to have enough space for the centerpiece here for the text and all that. So I'd say this kind of works for the most part as a general kind of outline of the flowers. And as I said before, I'm just going to group these together real quick so I stay organized. So we're just name this front. We're going to go back to this one, and I'm just going to shrink it a little bit, and this will be our background. So as on here it has some blurry flowers, we're just going to make that really quick. Super simple to do. So we're just going to keep duplicating it, and if you don't know the shortcut to duplicate things, it is Control J or Command J on a Mac. So that's a good little shortcut so you don't have to right click, copy paste, all that throughout the entire thing. But basically what we're going to do here is we're just going to kind of fill up the entire background with just a bunch of different flower bushes, different sizes maybe. Just kind of get a general thing just to cover up the black behind us. And we're going to basically merge these together. So we're going to call this background. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it in case I make a mistake. And I'm going to right click the group I did. So to group something, you just get your layers, select them all. So if you want to select more than one, just select the top one, hold shift, go down to the bottom, Control J, and that'll make a group, or Control G, I mean. So we have our group here. I'm just going to right click it, merge group, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we're just going to kind of blur it out a lot. Just kind of like something like this, so that it still shows that like there's rose bushes behind us, but it's not like the main focus of the header. You know, give it something different than just like a basic black background. So once we have this, I would say it's probably a good idea to start going with the CCs, aka color corrections. Now, I made some originally for this one, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to recreate them. I will include those two CCs down in the description down below if you want to use that. So I'm just going to get them out of my pack here, and then it was the first two. I'm going to put those in here, and I'm going to have it above everything here. So as you can tell already, me putting it on has added a lot of saturation and like really good color grading to it, I would say, rather than just this bright, like lots of whites, and yeah. So the color correction, good look. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add this white light here, just put it in the center there. And so what we want to do next after this is we're going to start with the kind of blurred flowers. So as you can tell behind these main, like the flowers that are in focus, behind them there are another row of flowers, but these ones are a little bit blurred to add some depth to the header. So this is another basic, like very easy to do. Just going to go to our main thing, and then I'm just going to pick one of the flowers that I did, this one for example, and I'm just going to drag it out of the group. I'm going to drag it behind the front layer, and I'm just going to kind of just have parts of it showing, not a whole lot, because you still want to save some space for the main header here. I actually might go down and drag the some of the flowers down a little bit. I'm going to do that. So do this. Like I said, you definitely want to put some more thought into this. I'm kind of rushing it for the sake of for the sake of time, I suppose. So something like this, and then I can drag these down a little bit. I'm just gonna do a edit, transform, flip horizontal, just so that there isn't like a pattern with the roses, so so it's inconsistent, you could say. So we're just gonna do this. Do one more down here. You have a little bit shown there, and then we'll edit, transform, flip vertical, and we're just gonna have a little bit behind the top and the side flowers here. So I think that'll be good. And we're just gonna basically group these together. So Control G to do so. We're gonna rename it. Let's do blurred flowers. We're gonna merge these together, so it's just one layer. We're gonna go filter again, blur, Gaussian blur, and this time we're just gonna lower it just a tad bit, just so that there's a little bit of depth there. So as you can see here, once I did that, you can tell that we have our front layer here. So this is the one that's in focus. We have our background one. So this is kind of the one that adds depth. And then we have our complete background, which is the one that basically kind of gives it its style, so it's not just like a bland black background like this. So once we have that, what we're going to do next is we're going to start with our lighting a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer above our color corrections. We're going to get our brush, make sure it's a soft brush, and then we're going to make it fairly big. I'd say, I guess 500 works. And we're going to go with a nice, like a yellow, like a bright yellow. And we're just going to kind of go over the parts of the flower so that there's a little bit of color there. Now you don't want to go all the way around like this, because then I feel like there's too much to it. So I feel like it's a good idea to have bits and pieces with this brush. So let's assume you decide to go with a different, I guess, layout for these flowers. You would want to kind of add some variety to it. I also recommend adding some gaps in between, so it's not just a constant circle or round like flower thing around the header. Add a little bit of like inconsistencies there, and then also with the yellows, like make sure you're doing the same with that, like how I don't have some in the right corner here. So once we have our lighting, we're just gonna lower the opacity just a tad bit, just maybe like I would say 37 is good. So as you can tell here, there's a little bit of color to it to add. It's just some oomph to it, you know. And one thing I did forget to mention is next we should add a hue and saturation right below the front, or actually, yeah, we do want it above the front. And what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna move it slightly to the right a little bit, just to add a little bit more yellow to the flowers. As you can see here, when I turn off the layer, there's a lot of like orange. There's some oranges in it. Now, if that's the look you're trying to go for, then it works perfectly for you. But I kind of like the just yellow and then a little bit of the bright greens, you know. So I'm going with this look here, and we have our lights. Next thing, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add another layer. And I'm going to kind of strengthen this white light on the top here. So what we're going to do is we have our new layer here, and we have a fairly big brush. I might even make it bigger. So let's go up to like, well, not that. Well, I guess this works. We'll just zoom out. So to zoom out, hold Alt or Command and use your scroll wheel on your mouse, and that will allow you to zoom in and out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of add a white brush here to add just some more lighting to the header overall. And we'll just lower it down to, let's say, maybe like 50% would be a good one. So once we have that, I guess we could get started on the text if we wanted. But there's another thing I did want to add to it, just to add some more detail to this blurred background. So as you can see here, I do have some little particle effects going on. Just to, I don't know, spice it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Now, I'm going to assume most of you guys already have a pack of some sort that has particles. That seems kind of like the normal thing that packs have. But so you just kind of get whatever particles you want. It doesn't matter too much. It's just more of what you want to use. So in my case, I'm going to use the one out of my pack here. Number 12, I'm going to just duplicate this, put it to my main header. And I'm going to put it below the color corrections and above the hue and saturation. And I'm just going to kind of have it mostly showing in the blurred area. So something like this would work. We'll group these together. We'll name them particles. Got our hue, saturation, particles, all that stuff. So now let's get on to the text part. So what we're going to do, and there's multiple ways you can do this. Like, you guys have the freedom to adjust this however you want. But I've noticed a cool look that I went with was kind of having half my alias, my online alias, being like kind of cut in a sense. Now, this obviously won't work for all names. Like, if you have a really long name, I don't think it would look that good. Maybe you could pull it off, but in my case, I have 4 letters, so it's fairly easy to do. But so to do that, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just do ZE. We're gonna make it really big, like I'd say 100, and we are gonna use kind of a cleaner font, I would say. So in my case, I'm gonna use OCR ASTD, and what we're gonna do is just kind of center this. I'm going to make the 0. I don't think you guys will have to worry about that. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put it above the particles. We're gonna add a drop shadow to it. So we're gonna go into our layer styles. We're gonna click drop shadow, and then if you want to copy these settings down, so 306 with a 35% opacity, that allows it for a good. It'll stand out. It'll pop a little bit more than if we didn't have it. So once we have that, what we're gonna do is we're going to rasterize the layer style. So now, when we do that, if I erase part of it, it's not going to mess with the layer style at all. So once we have the ZE, we're going to do the same thing with the ES here. We're going to add a drop shadow, same settings, and then we're going to rasterize layer style. So we have our 2 things here. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to make a new layer, and we're just going to get our rectangular marquee tool. And we're just going to kind of make a thin kind of rectangle. Right click that, fill, color white. And then that's going to make a white rectangle. And what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of angle it. So if you want the shortcut to do that, just do Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac. And we're just going to kind of angle it at a good place, I would say. So like maybe here, I think is a pretty good one. I'm going to shorten it a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Whoops. Maybe a little bit more. Down like so. And I'm just going to kind of. I'd say that works. So what we're gonna do now is, because I rasterized these, I can erase them just fine without it messing with the drop shadow at all. So I'm just gonna pen tool this part of the E out. So you just get your pen tool, put it on the rectangle, right click once you have that shape, delete. And as you can see, it deleted it without messing with any of the shadows or anything of that such. And we're kind of gonna just basically do the same thing with the B here. So I'm gonna kind of have it like this, I would say. We're gonna do the same thing with the pen tool. Make sure when you do this, you do have the layer selected that you want to delete, like so. And we kind of have our little shape here, I'd say. I did use a different font on this one. I don't know if I have this font anymore, so I kind of just went with one that's somewhat similar. It's going to do a different approach, but I would recommend doing a very curvy font, maybe even a cursive, possibly. So once we've done this, what we're going to do is we're going to have the second part of my name, that layer selected. We're going to go to our eraser tool. We're going to get a soft brush, and you want to make sure it's pretty small. And we're just going to kind of do some clicks over like this, I guess. And what this will kind of do is it'll make a kind of like a drop shadow for the B. So it kind of like these two connect together, and then there's a drop shadow over here. Just add a little bit more like detail and things like that sort. And then what we're gonna do is just kind of erase part of this, maybe, if you wanted. Let's see. Yeah, I like that look. So we'll erase part of that. And then if you wanted, you could also do bits and pieces of the text. Now, I didn't go with this on the original, but if this is something that you wanted to do, you definitely could do it. I feel like it does give a pretty good look to it. I'd say let's just go with it. We'll just keep going with it. So once we have our main text here, I'm just going to group these together, just so for organization, I suppose. Just name it text. And at this point, I mean, if you could do this, and then you could have just like Zebs with a really thin font. Let's see, typograph, light. Have a thin font, and then, you know, make it really small, 25, and then add some gaps between it. Basically, like something like this, kind of like what I did on the original here. Could do that. Or you could also add your social media, which I think in this case I might go with. So I'm just going to get the Twitter and Selfie icons really quick. Let's see. So we got, actually let's do YouTube and Selfie. So I'll select these, duplicate, bring them my main header, boom, boom. And then I'm just going to kind of size them down a little bit. Say maybe like that is yeah, that's a good size. We'll just do this, and then we're gonna add a text, and then this will be obviously whatever that is. So in my case, since I'm doing selfie, we're going to use that. I'm gonna make this 0. Actually, let's make like 100, I'd say. Make it 15. Let's see if 15 works. I suppose for the sake of the tutorial it can work. So once we have a basic like thing of how we want to lay this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control U for hue and saturation, and I'm just going to make this all the way white, so the selfie logo is white as well. As you can tell, I'm kind of going with a theme here as my colors. Just kind of bring that up to the center a little bit more. I'm going to duplicate this, bring it to the right, kind of give that, yeah, I like that look. And now we're going to do basically the same thing with the YouTube. Now, as I said before, if I make this all white with the YouTube, just the way their logo is, it's going to block out the little play button here. So I'm just going to quickly pen tool that out. So you just zoom in, select that. It doesn't even need to be like too precise, just make sure there's a triangle there, delete that. And then, as you can tell, when I do Control U, lightness to 100, you still have that YouTube look. So I'm just going to shrink this down to about the same size as the selfie logo. So I'd say about that works, I suppose. And we're just going to hold shift and drag, like so. And boom, we have our social media added. Obviously you can add some more if you want, there's room for it. Or you can even go with a different style on the Zebs if you'd like. It really just depends on your name and how you want to do it. You guys have the freedom to do that stuff. So once we've done all that, what I like to do next is just a little bit of some post. So I'm just going to select all the layers. So select the top, hold shift, and then click the bottom layer, Control G, Control J to duplicate it. And then what I'm going to do now is just merge the entire thing. So just one giant layer, as you can see. And I'm just going to duplicate that one giant layer. We're going to go to Filter, Other, High Pass, and then we're going to have the radius to 2.0 pixels. And what this effect does is it adds a sharpen, so it sharpens everything. So once we have this like gray kind of weird looking look to it, we're going to change from our normal to overlay. And as you can tell here, when I select and deselect it, you're going to notice a huge difference in the sharpness of the image. Now, personally, I feel like at 100%, it's a little too sharp. So I'd recommend turning it down to maybe 25% or even 50 if you're feeling risky that day. But I'm just going to go with 25. You know, I'm not feeling risky today. So we have those. We're just going to merge these together. Duplicate again. Now, this is an optional thing. You can do it if you want. Is go blur, Gaussian blur. We're just going to kind of lower it just a tad bit to maybe like 1.1. And we're just going to kind of erase bits and pieces of it. Now, what we want to do here is we want to focus on erasing mostly the Zebs so it's easy to read, and definitely the social media. That's an important one we want to have unblurred. And you just kind of want to maybe make your brush a little bit bigger and just kind of erase bits and pieces of the header. Mostly, I would mostly focus on the parts that are like the ones that are in focus. But I didn't erase all of it, so there's still parts that are blurred out. Just kind of add a little bit more depth to it, I suppose. Now, this is optional. Now, if I deselected, this looks just fine. It works. But if you want to go that extra mile, you can by adding blur. I might even just remove all the blur on the flowers. I kind of like the look without the blur. But I will keep the center text here blurred. I'm just going to kind of erase bits and pieces of it so that has that look to it. So once we have that, I would say for the most part it's pretty much complete. Like, you're free to experiment a little bit. Like, if you wanted to add some purple to it, you can do so by doing that. You know, kind of adds a cool look to it, I guess. And then you can erase this, erase that. I would say just add some more like pizzazz to it. But I would say that wraps up this tutorial. Now remember, I will have the color corrections and the flower I used on top of another one down in the description below if you wanted to follow me. I would say everything else is mostly Photoshop oriented, so you should be able to follow the tutorial just fine. And if you guys have any suggestions on tutorials that I should make, leave that comment down below. I plan on doing speed arts, tutorials, just any type of things like that on this channel. I plan on being active again and whatnot. So expect a video every week from me of some sort. Mostly tutorials. I definitely want to get back into the tutorial grind that I was in. That was a lot of fun, and I feel like a lot of you guys really missed that too. So hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. This has been on a flower / plant style I did a while ago. And so it's been your boy Zebs, and I'm out. Peace.